Well, hello. Welcome to Money Matters TV. I'm Mike Dever, founder and CEO of Brandywine Asset Management. And my co host today is Patricia Godwin. She's Senior Vice President and Wealth Advisor for Coral Gables Trust Company. Hello, Patricia.
Hello, Mike. Good afternoon.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me co-host with you today, be a guest.
absolutely. Absolutely. Great to have you. So, to start with, Coral Gables Trust Company, what is that and what is a trust company?
Great. Well, thanks for asking. Coral Gables Trust Company serves as a corporate trustee. We are headquartered in South Florida, and we're the largest independent trust company located in South Florida. We manage about $3 billion in assets under management, and we act as a fiduciary for our clients by administering trusts that they create and making sure that we look after the beneficiaries. Um,
Yeah, so when you're saying administer the trust, are you making investment decisions? Are you making decisions on where the money goes when the beneficiaries, receive it? What does an actual trustee mean?
Yes, so we actually do exactly what you spoke about. We do oversee the assets and we make sure that whatever the grantor who created the trust puts in the terms, that we carry out those instructions. A lot of times it's for beneficiaries that are children or grandchildren, and they put specific needs in there. Quite often it's for health, education, maintenance, and support. And so our duty is to oversee the assets and make sure that the trust lasts for as long as it's supposed to last. A lot of these trusts are created for the current beneficiaries, but also for future beneficiaries. So we have to oversee and make sure that we don't spend the trust assets if they're supposed to remain in the trust for a long period of time, and that we're managing the needs of both the current and future beneficiaries when we're looking at it. A lot of times, the investment allocation will depend on the time horizon and the risk tolerance and what the goals are of the trust. So, if we have someone who's a little bit older, we might be more conservative if we're making sure that they receive income distributions. If we have somebody who is young and is buying a first home, we'll look at the terms of the trust and see if we're allowed to help with a down payment on the house. So it's really about interpreting what is written inside of the trust agreement. I'd say a lot of times there's a boilerplate plate trust that is made that gives the trustee a broad amount of discretion in how they're going to distribute those assets. And other times the trust can be very specific and written for specific goals. You'll see some trusts that say we can't make a distribution if the beneficiary is taking drugs. And then we are absolutely authorized to administer a drug test to the beneficiary. Another
Right.
one might say specifically distribute a third of the trust when the beneficiary turns 35. So we sort of oversee exactly what needs to happen in that trust and provide oversight.
So is this something that rich people have? Would it be like an everyday person that would have a trust like this? Who are they made for?
Yes, my recommendation would be for everybody to have an estate plan in place. And a lot of times that would include a trust. I think in the old days, we thought about trust for only the uber wealthy and the Rockefellers, people that really needed to, carry these big assets around. But what we're seeing is a lot of individuals now have accumulated wealth over their lifetime, and especially with the housing prices increasing to the level they are, they do have significant assets to pass on to the next generation. And as we've seen, a lot of these beneficiaries aren't able to manage their finances. So we come in as a guardian and overseeing these assets and how they're deployed. Um, and so making sure that, when they get the funds, that they're not taking a trip around the world or just going on a spending spree, but really thinking about what is the purpose of the trust? How can we make sure that it's done well? So we're sealing in these assets can include 401ks, things that you have in the markets invested right now, houses, artwork, is really adding up. And we're heading into what is called the Great Wealth Transfer, which is going to be the biggest transfer of wealth that we've really ever seen, between the baby boomers down to the next generation. And we think it'll be about $68 trillion. And a lot of these beneficiaries have never seen that kind of money. They're not financially capable of doing that. So more than ever, we're seeing a need for, I'm from a middle class family. I never thought that my mother would need a trust, but she has grandchildren that she wants to take care of. And so I'm helping her, get a trust that's going to pay for their education and thinking about long term. And it's really about sort of sitting down and thinking about your financial goals and how you want those assets to pass. And it's not always to children as well. A lot of people want to give to foundations and nonprofits. They feel that's a really important part of their plan. So we sort of sit down and we look at their assets and what their goals are. And you don't have to just have one trust. You can have
Mhm.
multiple trusts, sort of with different goals for each one, even if the beneficiaries are the same. So it's really sitting down with. I think the best estate planning has a financial advisor, a trust officer, a CPA, and an attorney, all working together as a team together to decide what's in the best interest of your client.
When
A
when
lot
you
of time,
start out when you start out with these trusts, you say you can have multiple trusts. I understand the concept of trying to get to the beneficiaries, what you want to get to them, and some of those might not be sophisticated enough to manage that or handle that on their own. How much of what you're doing is that sort of personal guidance, and how much of it's tax? Is there a tax component as well? Because you always hear about trusts and trust fund babies and not paying taxes and whatever. I mean, is there opportunity to defer or avoid taxes through the trust structure?
absolutely. A little bit about my background. I've been in wealth management for about 25 years now. And when I first started, it was all about investing in the stock market. And now what we're really seeing is this shift in thinking about your estate plan and how those assets pass. There's a lot of creative strategies that you can do. To discount your assets or to give away your estate. We sort of think of an estate plan as a big, or your assets as a big funnel, and the job of what we do is we try to get those assets out of that funnel and pass them down in a tax efficient manner. Um, it is it can be very challenging and it can get complicated. But I think if you have someone who does a good guiding you along the way, it's a lot easier. A big part of my job actually is really helping clients and talking through what their goals and needs and concerns are. A lot of times, quite frankly, you're a therapist because there's really no one that they can talk to about, what worries them, family dynamics, issues with their children, with their spouses. So you really have to vet through these things. And so our goal is to build a very strong relationship with our clients so that they feel the need that they can really talk to you about anything. And really we act as a go-to. So they don't know the right questions to ask of their attorney or their CPA. They might not be familiar with the terminology. So
Mhm.
as a corporate trustee, we come in as really a safe space that they can ask anything they want and we'll direct them in the right place. I think a good trustee also really touches all aspects of your life as far as um, really whatever you're sort of needing, right? We need to have our eyes and ears. Is your insurance up to date? Are your estate documents up to date? Who are the trusted people in your life that we need to contact if there's ever an issue? So you really get involved in people's lives.
How are you different from a wealth manager, financial planning firm where somebody will go there and they'll get es- estate planning advice, ho- planning for their college education to their kids, making investment decisions? Uh,
Mhm.
how is there? Is it the same, but you're a trust company and they're a wealth management firm, or is there something totally different between what they do and what you do?
Yeah, so there is a difference. If you have an outside investment advisor that's managing the assets, as the trustee, we are going to oversee those assets and make sure that they're invested properly. But our main duty is to administer the trust. And so with that, we have to have expertise and experience to know what the language in the trust says and how to interpret that. We also come in as an impartial fiduciary. So we don't have to, we sort of look at it through a different lens than you might have if you were closely tied to it or a family member. We have to make sure that we're following applicable laws in the trust for reporting requirements. A lot of times people don't know, what you have to file, what notices you have to give. So there's really a lot that you have to go into, and then there's accountability and regulations. So we have our regulators looking over us and making sure that we're following all the rules properly.
Who are the
And
regulators?
so we're managed by, I was going to say FINRA because we're having all of these regulations right now with the Corporate Transparency Act, where we have to identify all of our beneficiaries. But we're regulated by the Office of Financial Affairs in
Comptroller
Florida.
of
Yeah,
Financial Affairs.
the
Okay.
OFC. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were talking about overseeing, they might have a wealth manager, but then they have you as well. Is that correct? Or do you serve in the wealth manager role as well? Could you?
Yes, so my firm does both. A lot of firms will not do that. So if you have a corporate trustee, a lot of times they will require that they manage the assets in-house, so they have full control. There are a small space of corporate trustees that will allow for delegated or directed trusts, which means we will let an outside investment manager manage the assets. And then we work very closely with that investment manager. And we always take an eye out. We look 6 months out in advance so that they're not pressed and having to sell into a bad market, to raise money for our distributions, taxes, expenses, and fees. And we'll hold that and we'll custody all of that at my firm and do the distributions to the beneficiaries, because we are the only ones who can distribute funds as the trustee. So the investment advisor can only take our instructions. So we'll reach out if somebody wanted a car for $50,000 and we go to a trust committee. And what we do is, it's a group of about 10 people, um, accountants, lawyers, relationship managers that have been in the business a long time, and we present the request of the beneficiary to a committee. So you have sort of a third party that's making a decision for you, and
Mhm.
they look at all the terms of the trust, the factors at hand, and then they'll either approve or deny requests. Um,
Okay.
we w- we work a lot with beneficiaries to provide their budgets to us, and work with them on receiving their monthly distributions and making sure they have what they need. So we try to look at it as like an annual budget and sort of get that approval in place and make those monthly distributions. But we all know that life happens, so we get a lot of emergency requests. Where we have to come in and make quick decisions to beneficiaries and help them out. So it's nice. We're a very flexible and nimble boutique trust company. We don't have a lot of red tape. I think, I think there can be some frustrations with corporate trustees because you are going, you know, you can't just go up to your uncle and say, I need some money, right? There's a formal process to it where we require backup and oversight to make sure that what we're doing and approving is actually what the trust says we should do, and that we are looking out for um, either current and future beneficiaries and really what the goal is at hand.
Okay. We're going to come back to this. I want to take a viewer question here first. The question is from Nancy Reed in Philadelphia. What is the value of downside risk management in your investments? So that's right up my alley. Brandywine Asset Management, we invest by the philosophy that reduce loss equals increased returns. So the whole idea is um, risk management on the downside. Preserve as much money as you can when the markets are behaving poorly, and then you can recover from a higher level and over time potentially increase returns because of that. It's We like to refer to it as running the 100-meter dash but starting on the 30-meter line. If the market's down 20 and you're only down 10 or 15, you have a head start. So to us, downside risk management is everything. It's far more important than trying to pick a hot stock and add risk to the portfolio to outperform on the upside, um, which we show is not really a sustainable process as well. So To answer that question, it's very important. Preserve capital and increase returns potentially because of that. Okay, so if you would like to ask questions of Money Matters TV, here's how you can do that.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, M-O-N-E-Y, matters, M-A-T-T-E-R-S, TV.com.
Thank you. Welcome back. Okay, Patricia, I have a couple other questions I wanted to ask of you. We can cover them here. One of them was, I know I need a well. Everybody always tells me you need a well. Is that all I need? Do I need a trust document, or can things be handled in the will?
They very well can be handled in the will, depending on what you want to do. A lot of people, I think that's their go-to document. I think there, in general, are five estate planning documents that all individuals should really have on file. The first one is a will. The second one is a revocable trust, which is basically, your assets are in your name, but if you're ever incapacitated or something happens to you, someone else can step in, serve as your trustee immediately, and then there's continuity for your affairs. There's also a power of attorney. So if you are ever not able to make financial decisions or sign documents, your power of attorney is able to do that. There's also a healthcare proxy. So this is if you're incapacitated or not able to make medical decisions. Your healthcare proxy can come in and make that change for you. And the fifth one, the top of my head, um, people also often have a do not resuscitate. So if that's something that you want that to be of importance to you, you can do that. I think most of these things you can do a very easy Google search of key estate planning documents. And those are the things that you want to have on file. So you make sure that if something ever happens to you or at your passing, that you're taken care of and that your intention for the assets are taken care of.
And do you do that work, I guess, along with the trust documents when you create something, or is that something they come to you usually already prepared?
So when we meet with clients, we gather all their estate planning documents. Um, they're usually not totally complete, and we think of estate planning as um, a working plan. So you don't just set it and put it on the shelf. We review these documents every 2 years with our clients, with the idea being that people get divorced, did they change their beneficiary designations? You promised artwork that's hanging on your walls to your best friend. Well, unless something like that is written inside of your will, that just isn't going to happen. So you really have to have a keen ear to listen to what people say, because what they think is going to happen and what actually happens isn't necessarily the case. So we work very hard with them to set everything up and really think through a holistic plan for them. And you can do these plans, most estate planning attorneys will charge you just a couple hundred dollars for a pretty well-written basic plan. And then as your assets get more complicated or you have more in assets and more that you want to do, the prices go up from there. But I think it's worth its weight in gold if you have a good estate plan in place. I have seen many situations of people trying to draw up a will when they're hospitalized, which is not, what you want to be focusing on. Um, and there's just a lot of uncertainty, and I think a lot of people don't really know what their financial picture is and what their goals really are.
Hmm.
So having them sit down and really think through these things and then putting pen to paper is huge. I know many people very wealthy that don't have a will at all or a trust. For the fear being that if they prepare those documents, they're signing away, they're going to die immediately. So, but we think about it as being proactive and sort of seeing the bigger picture Financial health is a really important part. We deal a lot with second marriages, and someone leaving money to their spouse and the children not being so happy with that.
Hmm.
And so it's good to have somebody come in there as a buffer, and you can talk to the spouse, you can talk to the children, and really deliver news and try to see where they're coming from, but really understand that the plan was created by this person that accumulated wealth. So what we're really trying to do as a fiduciary is act as they would have acted. So the only thing we really have going for us is that trust agreement. If you have a will, it just will go to probate court and be distributed pretty much outright. You can't really hold those assets in a safekeeping basket. So, if you say, look, I only have a few $100,000, it's no big deal, I'm going to give it to Johnny. Yeah, a will might be fine, knowing that it's going to be public information and he's going to get the money outright and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. Having those same assets put into a trust, it avoids probate court, so it's private information. Nobody knows how much money you gave, was left, and then you really can protect those assets. Or, it might be spend the trust down in 5 years. I have someone who every 5 years they get 20% of the trust, which is completely fine.
Can the
Um,
trust be? Can you do it? Somebody has a diagnosis, they're not going to live long. Is that too late to set up a trust, uh, or is there's still value in doing it
it's
right
never,
near end of life?
yeah, no, it's never, it's not too late to do it. I even had a client. He was not in the best shape, so he was partially blind, had a hard time hearing. And so when we were making changes to his documents, we would always have like three attorneys in the room, a couple witnesses, went over the documents 3 or 4 times before he was able to sign. So there's, even when you have situations where people are, sort of end of life, it definitely makes sense, and there's ways to get it done. As
Hmm.
long as they're not incapacitated. At that point, that's when really nothing can be done at that point.
Yeah, you've already lost your opportunity to put power of attorney or other structures in place, I guess, at that point, right? It's just
Hmm.
on free
That's right.
flow. Now, do you serve then as the trustee, or do they have other trustees?
So it oftentimes we will have a co-trustee. It's completely up to whoever writes the document. A lot of times we'll see a co-trustee be a family member or a beneficiary be a co-trustee alongside with us, which is great. We always welcome that opportunity and we encourage open communication and talking to the family and beneficiaries about the trust. So those are great relationships. I think a good question is sort of who is the appropriate person to name as a trustee. I think people shy away because of the cost involved, and they don't want to pay for it. Um, so I was just thinking a little bit about sort of the pros of having a corporate trustee is they bring a lot of expertise and experience to the table. We have many beneficiaries, so we sort of know what to look out for. We know when a beneficiary is giving us the runaround. We know key information to request. Um, so a lot comes our way. We're very impartial. So if you have a family member that might not like one of the children, or just doesn't think that you should necessarily buy this car, or spend money to go on a vacation trip, we don't really have that. Our goal is to read the trust agreement and do exactly what it is instructing us to do.
How
There's also a
flexible is that? How flexible is the trust document? Somebody sits down and they draft something with you, and then 3 years later they're going, I don't like that. Is it easy to change, or is it locked in? And you hear about irrevocable trust and and revocable, and does that come into play with that question?
Yes, it comes in the question all the time. So revocable trust, you're able to change the trust while you have capacity, as long as you're not incapacitated. If you yourself make the revocable trust, you are referred to as the grantor. And a lot of times, usually that trust is just for your benefit during your lifetime. And then they will name a successor trustee in that document. So if they name my firm Coral Gables Trust as successor trustee, we will step in if that grantor became incapacitated, and we will manage that trust for them during their lifetime. We'll pay their bills. You know, if they go into assisted living, we make sure that's taken care of. If they need in-home healthcare provider and they don't have any family members, we will go out and make sure that they have everything that they need. If they need food delivery, whatever they need, and we'll pay those bills directly from the trust account once it becomes in that irrevocable status. But you can absolutely change the revocable trust during a lifetime. An irrevocable trust, you're not able to change the terms unless you do either you go through the courts and the courts are able to amend the trust agreement. That often happens when the trust language is vague and you're not sure how to interpret it. You'll go to the courts to make a decision. Or also if a beneficiary is, you know, upset with the trustee, but they don't have a way to remove the trustee, they can go to court to find ways to resolve issues inside of the trust itself. Another
But it
way
sounds
is
like it's more though tweaking, interpreting, not changing. Once it's irrevocable, you're pretty much done at that point. Is that correct? Is
to some extent, with irrevocable trust, it's hard to change the distribution standard, but there are certain things. We are a Florida-based trust company, so we go off of Florida law. So there's certain things you can do. A lot of trusts say you can distribute income from the trust. It's very hard for beneficiaries to get a lumpy income distribution if a stock's paying quarterly versus monthly and semi-annually. You know, they get a big payment in June and nothing else the rest of the year. So you can do certain things, which is called a unitrust payment under Florida law, where you change it to a 5% distribution. So it's a smooth distribution that they can
so
sort of
you
rely
can
on.
make some adjustments to it now.
Very
So you bring up
minor.
the idea, yeah, that you're Florida. Does that mean me being in Pennsylvania can't use you, or does it matter whether you're Florida based or Delaware based or Pennsylvania based for your clients?
So for the beneficiaries, they are able to live wherever they want to. We have international beneficiaries, um, and the important thing there is where the trust is governed. It is called the situs of the trust. So if a trust is based in New York, we have a lot of people coming down from New York to Florida now. We need to change the situs to Florida. And that is done through a simple document called a non-judicial settlement. And that's exactly what it means. So, non-judicial, we don't have to go to the courts, right? We just get a piece of paper and we say, all beneficiaries involved, we're changing the situs from New York to Florida. Please sign off. They say yes. And now it's administered under Florida laws. A lot
But
of
could they
people
start New York with you as a Florida trust? Okay,
Yeah, so we change it, and then it can oftentimes be beneficial for the trust will pay the taxes of the state taxes of New York if it has a situs or governed by New York. When it moves to Florida, you remove that tax liability to the state of New York. So it can be very beneficial since Florida has no taxes. The
okay,
beneficiaries are always taxed on the distributions. So if the trust distributes $10,000 to you in New York, you have to pay $10,000 on that income, right? It
got it.
follows the money. But if that 10,000 stays in trust, the trust pays the taxes and there is no state tax at that level. So it can be
Okay.
very beneficial.
Well, thank you very much, Patty. We're running out of time. I really appreciate it. Obviously, we had a lot of questions, and there's, I'm sure, questions our viewers have, I have remaining, but thank you very much. Appreciate you being my co-host on the show. Our next guest on Money
Thanks.
Matters TV is Jim Fendrick, President and CEO of Rockland Immunochemicals. Thank you for watching Money Matters TV, where your money matters. See you next time.